fighting scarves that they used in Esteli. Esteli's a small town in Nicaragua, so that the Somoza troops wouldn't know who they were. Then I gave these to Joe and Mick.
We decided to call the record Sandinista to redress the lack of information that was in the papers.
I never knew who the Sandinistas were or where Nicaragua was. The lyrics of Joe Strummer were like an atlas. They opened up the world to me and to other people who came from a kind of blank suburbia.
It's up to you not to heed the call up, I don't wanna die. It's up to you not to heed the call up, I don't wanna kill.
As soon as the people got hold of the idea that, all right, it's punk, we get it, we got it. And then when we started to play other things, you get a lot of abuse, especially in Britain.
I mean, my favorite Clash record is Sandinista, and the whole concept of that record of people standing up for their brothers and sisters and not taking any shit. There's like the same ethos of punk rock. But they couldn't have been my favorite band of all time if every record hadn't grown and hadn't gotten better and hadn't changed. And it's the biggest inspiration for me with our band, with the Chili Peppers. I mean, because there's no point in carrying on if you don't have something new to say.
Sandinista, the triple, for the price of one. We wanted it released for a low price, because we felt that records were generally overpriced. And that's when the record company Freak, they were quite happy to bury that one, I think.
You learn a lot about life, getting shafted royally.
And anyway, after Sandinista, I realised that I wanted Bernie back. I still think Bernie's a creative individual, and I was missing his inputs.
It was a question of either Joe was going to leave or Bernie came back. So Bernie came back.
With a vengeance.
The Clashing was a rusty old wreck, and I had to grab it and do it up and put my engine in it, my updated engine.
Yeah. Would you like to interview our manager while he's here?
Catch him while he's hot.
Bernie.
Bernie.
Leave him. Let him
Sorry, that's Bernie Rose.
Sorry about that. Come back.
He invented punk. It's obviously too much for him.
The Clash became like a family. It was like warring brothers. I think the others kind of looked up to Joe. Joe was like the big brother. He was a bit older, I think that made a difference, and he was probably the most forceful.
Then we found our greatest success in commercial terms.
The Clash invade America, next Off the Record.
People still hate us in England for making it in America. Somebody had to break out and prove that this thing was a global thing. It wasn't just a neighborhood thing.
Only half the people could get in, and they started rioting in Times Square. And it was right across the States, the first time since Frank Sinatra that they had to close off Times Square.
It's a madhouse there. It's crazy in there.
The Bonds manager, Joel Heller, denied his club had done anything wrong.
Well, no one, I cannot say that we overbooked.
All over New York, you could hear our stuff coming out. There was a black mix of Mag 7. That was coming out of every ghetto blaster in the city every hour. That summer, that moment, we had New York.
There was a romance that the Clash had with New York at that period in time. I remember bumping into a guy called Jack Checker, who was a cab driver, and he told me that they weren't like other rock stars who came to New York. Their limousine was Jack Checker's cab.
Oh, he just wanted to see the city. He wanted to see Harlem. He wanted to see Brooklyn. He just wanted to see the people and interact with the people.
Does this man deserve to be in jail?
I mean, they took New York, and all the artists wanted to see them and wanted to check them out.
The Clash was a revelation. It's something. It took us back to the first excitement of hearing rock and roll for the first time.
And all that sound about Raging Bull.
Interestingly enough, in Raging Bull, the music that is there is music from the 40s and 50s and opera. But the place I went for the source, for creativity, came from the Clash, really.
I did see the Clash at Bonds
and Grandmaster Flash opened for them, and they were practically booed off the stage.
It was crazy, like 3,000 people, like everybody say, hold, it's like, fuck you. Say, yeah, get the fuck out of here.
When the Clash came out, Joe reprimanded the whole place, you know, and said, you know, you gotta give him a chance, you know, you gotta listen, you know, like, don't do that. You know, and the whole crowd was like, oh shit. Strummer just like did a number on us.
Even when I'm vomiting on a carpet in the airport, it's him who's standing up for me, having a go at the journalist, saying he's ill, leave him alone. And...
Shut up, will you, stupid cunt?
Oh, thanks very much about that.
Yeah, that's what you deserve with that sort of crap. What do you think we are? Do you think this is 1976 and you're talking to the Sex Pistols? Piss off or I'll fucking piss all over you. If he feels like throwing up, it's because his stomach hurts. I don't need your jokes to fucking contend with. If you haven't got something serious to say, piss off.
What is serious?
Well, you tell me. How about life and death? Never mind who pukes on stinking carpets.
There were parts of his character that I didn't like. I had my girlfriend on the road with me. I had a big argument with her somewhere. And said, right, well, you're not sleeping in my room. I woke up the next morning and she'd spent the night with Joe, you know, and that kind of really hurt. I felt really betrayed, and he did it with me, he did it with other people as well, you know. We'd lost that unity. I was already starting to disappear at my own arse. Joe was having doubts. I think he was already becoming embarrassed by the fact we were so successful. And Mick wouldn't travel on the bus unless he had a spliff.
Everybody's got their weaknesses, you know.
I'm having a nervous breakdown.
We got fed up with each other. We've been living in each other's pockets for year upon year. We never had a holiday. Groups now have a holiday. They go away, they get their heads together. We never had any of that. We just continually work.
And Mick thought if he didn't want to play White Riot, none of us could.
I made a comment which was probably out of order, and I probably shouldn't have said it, but I did, and that's what sparked the whole thing up. And it was directly related to his presence on the stage.
He went, you've got no respect for the stage. And I said, don't fucking tell me about the stage. And then he threw his vodka and orange in my face. So I hit him as hard as I could in the center of the forehead.
It was one fuck of a punch, and it drew blood, you know? That's what people call musical differences, ain't it? Mick didn't like White Riot. But Joe looked as shocked as Mick did. Fuck me, what have I done here, you know?
Nervous breakdown.
Well, I'm no boxer, but I guess that was a triple hook combination with a double uppercut. Eddie Cochran there, nervous breakdown.
And it was over the next thing, and I was laughing my head off.
Suddenly you're on the Saturday Night Live, you get on Johnny Carson, you're on talk shows. We weren't prepared, funnily enough, after all the years of struggle, to actually be there. Everybody began to get big-headed. It was just falling apart. Never at any one time were the four of us in the studio at the same time. I turn up at Electric Ladyland Studios and no one was there. I've got this idea on the piano. If I put the drums down, and I can put the piano over the top, and when the others come in, I can say, this is my idea. So I put the drums down, put the piano down, and still no one was there. So I picked up the bass and put the bass down quickly, and added the percussion. And by the time they came, I said, listen, I've got this idea. And I played it to them, and it was virtually completed. It was Joe actually said, well, that's brilliant.
Bernie came in and he said, why does everything have to be a raga? And we went, what? He said, everything's going on for 6 minutes. How are we going to get this stuff on a record? And then he left, and we started to laugh about the raga. I went back to the Iroquois Hotel on 44th, and it was already daylight again. I had a typewriter in the room, and I went over to the typewriter and I typed, now the king told the boogeyman, you have to let that raga drop. I was tired out of my mind, and that paper sticking out of the typewriter was irresistible. I just sat down and I did the whole lyric to Rock the Casbah. There's no tenderness or humanity in fanaticism. That's what I was trying to say in Rock the Casbah.
Mick and Joe's relationship had become really difficult. You know, we used to drive around there and he used to post lyrics through the letterbox. He didn't want to see him, he didn't want to write with him.
I got worried at that point that Mick would lead us into disaster. through his complete idealism and refusal to compromise in order to operate in the real world.
You know, Mick's an emotional guy, wears his heart on his sleeve, and quite often was the fall guy for things that Joe was actually responsible for. And Mick took a lot of undue flack, but that was Joe doing his Machiavellian manoeuvring number so that he wasn't the bad guy.
But we're not very good at making life easy for ourselves. We never have been. We keep going because, like, we are the real McCoy. We're not going to just fold up and in a few weeks you wonder what all that was about. We're going to be here and continue and get harder and rougher than tough. Dreader than dread, you know. It was the eve of a tour. The tickets in the UK were not selling that well. So Bernie Rhodes said, look, you've got to disappear. I said, well, Bernie, if you really think I should disappear, I will. Where do you want me to disappear to? And he said, well, I don't know. Go to Austin, Texas. You know that fellow there, Joe Ely, the country singer? I said, OK, Bernie, I'll be seeing you. I took the boat train to Paris instead, and I thought it'd be a good joke if I never phoned Bernie at all. He was going to be thinking he was going to be acting, you know, oh, where's Joe gone? And really, he was going, where has he gone? And I ran the Paris Marathon, too. And eventually they hired a private detective to find me.
What is he up to, and what news is there of his whereabouts? Who can answer that? Cosmo?
We don't know where he is, and we can't find him. And if you're listening, Joe, I said this before, please get in touch. We need to talk to you.
So in no way is this any kind of publicity stunt?
None whatsoever, I tell you.
He was just proving, without me, this band can't go on. And when he came back, it was either me or Topper. I can't deny that I wasn't firing on all cylinders. When you use drugs, you don't care anymore. I was self-seeking, I was dishonest, I was... You know, I didn't really give a fuck about anyone.
They have to undo my boots for me because I can't undo them. Oh, right. Yeah, hurry up.
I gotta go sunbathing.
You go sunbathing. Bye, Topper. Down the railway track.
There wasn't a lot of choice, really. You can't have a band where the drummer is so out of it he can hardly play sometimes, and he's always late. I burst into tears, right? Mick was crying. Then Joe kind of softened. He said, listen, it's not the end. If you pull yourself together, we'll say you've been sacked for, you've got nervous exhaustion, and if you get yourself together by the time we come back, you've got the gig. I tried to stop, and about a week after they started the American tour, I think Joe got drunk, and he said, we had to get rid of Topper because he was a heroin addict. And overnight, you know what I mean, I was Topper from the Clash resting through nervous exhaustion to being sacked for being a junkie. And that's when I started injecting. While I was playing hooky, everybody had a row, and Topper just decided that he obviously didn't think I was ever coming back, and he decided to cut out. You know, we're playing with a guy called Terry Chimes, who played on our first album, and maybe we'll stick with him. I was living in a squat in Fulham with no windows, sleeping with my dog under the carpet. I'm seeing my song on a video with some other bloke playing in it. I don't think we played a good gig after Topper was fired. Rock the Casbah cracked the top 5 in America. We want to be #1 in every country in the world. Seriously, we do.
It's made me wake up to a lot of things that are happening in the world. Kick-ass band. Revolutions, nuclear arms race, individual rights.
But if that's going to destroy us, then we're not so sure we want it.
What do you want to be doing when you're 40 years old? Do you want to stay into this and continue to play?
I want some dignity left. Yeah.
They're not punk rock now.
What are they now?
They're just what the Stones are.
Obviously, life's full of sick jokes, and you could have seen that one coming, I guess. But it's still of a shock when it actually happens. No, we turned into a load of pop stars. I couldn't believe that we turned into the people we were trying to destroy. I'd rather go back to busking, be a nobody, than carry on like that.
When the Clash got really, really huge, it must have on some level, you know, been frightening, you know. I mean, it must have scared them on some level, and maybe they weren't ready for it then. Just afraid that that degree of success or money would taint their purity, their ability to be honest.
What is the question?
I'm asking you about the kind of responsibility that you feel that you've got towards the fans as the public figures that you are.
I just don't feel strong enough to carry anything at the moment, let alone anything like that.
Are you discouraged with rock and roll in general, though?
It's no worse than any other prostitution business.
What we got for you tonight is, we ain't got no baseball tonight. We ain't got no football, they're on strike. But what we have got for you is a little bit of what's going on in London at the moment. So will you welcome, all the way from London Road, London W10, the Clash, come on!
Standing there singing the songs while it got bigger and bigger towards the end, for some reason I began to feel worse and worse. It's something to do with what those songs are saying.
Career opportunities are ones I never know. Every job they offer you to keep you at the top. Career opportunities are one that
It's all right when we were part of the audience, part of a movement.
Well, I hate the army, I hate the RAF.
Once it became thousands of miles removed from that, I began to freak out.
I hate civil service rules.
Mick was probably comfortable with success. Joe was uneasy with it, but didn't know why he was unhappy, and he was just a struggle inside him that couldn't ever be resolved. You know, he couldn't be happy because he wanted the band to be successful, but when it was successful, he wasn't comfortable, so there was nowhere to go.
The thing that the Clash don't understand, and the thing that a lot of these bands don't understand, is that you can't take life so goddamn seriously, honey.
You make, you buy, you die. That's the motto of America. You get born to buy it. And if there's anything going to be in the future, it's got to be from all parts of everything, not just one white way down the middle of the road. I need some hostility here, you know. Yeah, I need some feeling of some sort. Hey, we're all alive at the same time at once, you know. Should I stay or should I stay? Stay or should I go? If I go, there will be trouble. And if I stay, there will be trouble. So you got to let me know.
7 years ago, we decided that we were going to be bigger than anybody else, but still keep our message.
Who am I supposed to be? Sing the side to remember which husbands I've been over.
We have fallen into every pitfall that you could possibly fall into as a group, starting from nothing and becoming something. Probably invented a few new ones along the way. The success goes to your head pitfall, the ego trip pitfall. So you think you're geniuses, you become drug addicts, you make overindulgent records, you overdub the sound of ants biting through a wooden beam. All these things, we've gone through each and every damn one of them, and that's why we come out a depleted force.
Should I stay or should I?
Mick was pretty hard work to work with. He was in his prima donna phase. Bernie turned around to me and said, look, why don't we sling this guy out? And I figured it was a good idea because I don't like being bummed out. You know, when you go to work in a good mood and there's some guy always bumming out. We weren't about to make any music like that, so I thought, fuck it, why not?
I think it was Joe who managed to muster up the courage to say that he didn't want to play with me anymore. And when somebody says that to you, you know, that I just packed my guitar up and just, well, hey, you know, okay, bye, and that was it. And I walked. And Bernie come running out after me with a check in his hand, you know, like a gold watch or something, you know, which added insult to the injury. But I took it anyway.
It was right at the time of the carnival. It was awful, you know, walking around the carnival and then you might see someone and you're like trying to... I did everything. I grew a beard. I dyed my hair, you know, blonde for about 2 days. I was in complete traumatic shock. But then that's character building, you know, when those things happen to you.
I hadn't understood that the manager suddenly wanted to become an artist. Bernie conned me to get rid of Mick, to lay the way open for him to step in. Stupidly, I allowed that to happen. It's my fault about the end, definitely.
So he kind of thought, yeah, well, maybe Mick was the problem, like he thought Chopper was the problem, you know. He didn't maybe at that point think we're all the problem.
I mean, he was a coward too. You know, there you go, I gotta say it. I mean, Joe, you know, he was a coward and didn't like confrontation.
What pisses me off about The Clash is that this extraordinary band should still be here.
We had to restructure our group to get rocking again.
This is Pete Howard, the drummer, and Vince White guitar, and up top, Nick Shepherd guitar.
Pete Howard and Vince and Nick Shepherd, they all felt really intimidated, which I can't blame them because they were entering the scene was already so big.
How do you feel about the band at this point in time?
Great. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great.
Everything's blando, 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 you know. Let's have a revolt from the bottom up.
Drugs are over from this minute now. Anybody who takes a drug is a hippie, and hippies can shove off.
Accountants and lawyers are writing the songs. Attorneys are playing the lead guitar solos.
Bono Rhodes wanted to really take over big time, and he wanted to be the producer, and I let that happen. Everything was wrong. There was no vibe. It was all Bernard's ego. Eventually, I snapped.
Strummer, he was a bloke to do the job. He was temporary. He wasn't permanent.
And that was the end of it.
Carina, Carina, yeah, where you been so long?
They used to ask me, so you think you schmucks can change the world, they'd say to us. They said it so often that you began to believe them, which is fatal. Trust thyself.
Baby, please come home.
Joe came into Granada in 1984. He was looking for the Federico Garcia Lorca things. Quickly, the gossip spread in the city that this guy who is like a hippie, he's so dirty, he seems to be Joe Strummer. So I went to the bar and said, hey, are you Joe Strummer? He told me in Spanish, sí, hombre, ¿qué quieres beber? So, what do you want to drink? He told me that he felt so frustrated, so alone, so lonely. He was unsatisfied with what he was doing. And while watching the Alhambra, say, my brother should be here. If he knew Granada before, he probably wouldn't commit suicide. And suddenly he told me how wonderful it is to be alive.
That's Bob Dylan with Carina Carina and his wild scratching posse of hip-hop artists. Recorded live at the Village Vanguard down in Old Manhattan.
Even though Joe was a natural preacher, and even though he was a really righteous preacher, the very fact that he became a preacher in some ways was maybe a betrayal of his own best instinct. And I always sort of felt like he spent those kind of wilderness years almost doing penance.
You know, I had to really disassemble myself and examine all the pieces and put myself back together. I really felt completely destroyed by that experience. And also, my father had died while we were on the last tour. And when I came home, My mother started to sicken, and then she died after the end of that year. You know, I lost my parents, my group. You want to think about things, you know, you become a different person. No more was I an adolescent. I'm a London parent. I've got kids now.
Joe had to really exercise the ghost of the Clash. It was a journey that he had to take through where he'd been, what he'd achieved, and his part in it all exploding.
It's ironic that, you know, after Mick was cast out from the Clash, he was really the first one to break big with Biblio Dynamite. And Joe seemed to be spending his time doing a little bit of acting work and the odd soundtrack.
The desert's beautiful at night. Beautiful but lonely. Some people don't believe in God. That was my first week on the picture, you know, and gun twirling takes about a month.
I was 18 when I made Straight to Hell with Joe. I was broke, I was busted, I was in love with a total loser, and I had no place to go in London. And I called Joe, and him and his wife and his children took me in like I was, you know, their family.
It's great having kids because that brings you back down to earth. You do find yourself shouting, "Turn the bloody music down! Yeah, turn that rumble!" I guess it's some sort of learning thing that we've got to go through. Us rebels thought that we could somehow escape, you know? But it's all in us somewhere, isn't it? We become our parents slowly but surely.
I saw him withdraw. He would just completely cut off and go to his cabin or his cell or his whatever he created that was very private, and he'd retreat to that and he'd do his thing. So I suppose in the conventional term, he wasn't 100% brilliant father. When he was on, he was fantastic, and when he was off, he was just not available.
He really loved those girls. There were a lot of uncertainties with Joe, but that was one thing that was very clear.
You were lead singer of the Clash for many years, and
Many.
now you're hanging around. Are you looking to form another band?
No, I'm kind of just doing a bit of music for film, but I'm not really looking at that as something to do long term. I'm more like trying to get my bearings. You know, it takes a while to recover from 10 years on the road with one group. You know, I can't seem to snap into it that quickly.
I got a phone call from him, like, you know, Xander, we're up here in San Francisco, you know, at Russian Hill Studio, and I want you to come up and bring a Spanish guitar. You know, it was like, that was the message. That was my call to arms to be a part of that Walker soundtrack.
I think Walker was one of the finest things that he ever did. He was really proud of that.
No one's ever heard it, but don't mind.
I am actually in it as an extra. I grew a beard and grew my hair really long. I used to run about wearing rags.
Whenever he tried something new, people weren't really prepared to listen with new ears, because what people wanted was Joe Strummer and they wanted the Clash, and that spoilt a lot of the work that he did.
One day I was standing on Portobello Road and I thought, do you know, it's time to cut down on my drinking. And I walked home and the phone rang, and it was the Pose going, hey, you've got to come on tour. So I did a US tour, depping for the rhythm guitarist in the Pose.
Okay, I'm gonna go out and get vibed up.
I think the Pose gave Joe a good appetite to start playing live again himself, you know.
I put together a nice little group for this permanent record film. I called it the Latino Rockabilly War. I wrote the music and then I went out for 3 nights looking in all the little clubs and bars and little underground scenes that are happening in Los Angeles. I just picked the musicians from watching them. I already knew Xander because he worked on Walker, but I picked the rest up from jazz clubs and Bohemian dives.
In Trash City, that's Party Avenue. I got a girl from Kalamazoo. In Trash City on the transit line. I put you on hold, but you're looking fine.
He was looking for a drummer in his band,
And he said, I've got the guy. I said, who? He goes, Ramon Bajaranda. I said, is he good? He goes, I don't know, but his name's Ramon Bajaranda, man. He's got to be good. We got to hire him. Of course, he was not in the band, unfortunately.
He hired my former drummer, Jack Irons, and he's a pretty phenomenal beat keeper. I thought that was pretty amazing because at the time Jack was in a mental institution, and so Joe was like, oh, that's okay, we'll get him a ride to and fro every day, and he'll come into the studio and he'll have a job and we'll make this record.
I think if your projects are consistently failing, if they weren't selling records or people weren't really listening, I think ultimately that wears you down.
I'm still signed to Epic from the Clash days.
Mm-hmm. And you have no great desire to do a record for him?
For Epic?
Yeah.
Well, I expect sometime in the last 4 years someone would ring me up and head me, but nobody ever did.
He was quite depressed. He was not happy. I mean, the whole process of Earthquake Weather, in retrospect, I see it as he had masterminded his own death at Epic, Just fucking release me once and for all. I mean, I'm gonna take a $500,000 budget and make a $500,000 art record. And they hated it.
I had the head of the label and a bunch of this sort of brass from Epic assembled at Baby O Studios in Hollywood to hear the record. I can't find him anywhere, and he's not at the studio. And I go to the house, and I see in the driveway there's a yellow piece of legal paper nailed to the door. Dear Jerry, : don't be mad, dash. I wish I still had this. I've gone to the desert. We'll be back on, : Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then he circled Thursday. Joe couldn't just write, I'll be back Thursday. Probably didn't even know until he saw all the days of the week written out in his own hand. Thursday. And he came back Thursday, and it was too late. Everyone had gone back to New York, and he made that record a self-fulfilling prophecy, I think. He didn't have his confidence back yet.
The guy fucking intended on shooting himself in the foot, sabotaging his career, and possibly any kind of relationships that he had that he didn't want to be in. He needed to make some serious changes in order to be happy.
He had to find a place in himself where he was happy with just being Joe and letting go.
Was part of the reason why I shut down shop after Earthquake Weather, because I realised I was contracted to these people on a never-ending contract. So I was kind of fucked, and I decided to bore them out. For the next 8 years, I figured out how to get out of the contract.
I guess it was kind of a dark period for him in some ways when we became friends, He had a lot of frustrations about his life in general. I'm sure other people have brought up, the Strummer's law of no input, no output, because he was always interested in taking things in. That period maybe was very important for him and fertile, but I think maybe a little painful at times.
And I cornered him in the kitchen. And I said to him, Joe, do you think we'll ever work together again? And it's one of the most brilliant things he ever said to me. He said, don't be stupid, man. I was like, and it was like one of those ambiguous, like, Joe-isms. It's like, don't be stupid, man, of course. Or don't be stupid, man, move on, it's over.
Jim asked me to be in his film Mystery Train. And he said that Strummer was going to play one of the parts. I was as nervous to work with him than if he told me I was going to work with Marlon Brando or De Niro or somebody, that it was Strummer. I was like, all right, just calm down. It's okay. You could do this.
I was hoping that maturity would arrive. I'm still waiting at the station for it. Yeah, I found you can't just walk in there and expect to get a result.
Sorry.
A bit like you couldn't really walk into a studio if you never thought about music and put down a good album.
Used to go from high to down easily. He was really emotional.
Good morning, Saudi Arabia. Kicking off Desert Shield Network, FM 107. And we started off rocking the Casbah.
I saw him crying because he saw in the news an American bomb prepared to be thrown in Iraq, was reaching Rock the Casbah. He was crying. He told me, hey man, I never could think that a song of mine could be reaching as a death symbol in a fucking American bomb.
I used to call him Chief Thundercloud, because he was in a very dark space. I did this film called When Pigs Fly, and I benefited because he was so anxious to make music.
Way down in a working town, where the boys you might find some happy and some sad, but some drunk all around. If the breeze is blowing in from home, the door is shaking in the wind. Now that's when the boys will sing to the rose of Erin.
He hadn't been in the studio for a very long time. And he kind of went nuts, and he gave me 9 hours of music in 4 days.
Oh no! Bollocks. Well, you always, every time you get something happening, you always go over it by later in the fury of it. Could you play me the rest of it? You haven't run back, have you? Could you go right to the end to see what's left after that stupid fool clapped on it? Bloody hell! What a pillock! Imagine that you're a rock and roller, and say you were in a big band like I was and what have you, and time goes by, and then you meet a 17-year-old guy. He's never heard of the Clash, and that's the moment that my feet touch the ground again. I've got ideas for the new world. I can't go back. It's be like a living museum. No, I just want to get out there and do something new, and then you get your own energy from the newness of it. I think it says in the Bible, there's a time to dance to techno and a time not to. We've got new, fresh sounds every week. You can't even keep up with it. Have you tried keeping up with, like, techno, hardcore, trance, intellecno? It's a hotbed of creativity, and that's a fact. Standing in a kitchen listening to rave music, I couldn't understand it. I had to go to a rave to understand it. And after about 4 hours, we were supposed to go into a trance. In fact, I was going into a trance. And I thought, it's just say we were in a forest and there was nothing to do but these big empty logs. Like, say we were pygmies or something. We'd end up, what we'd be doing by about lunchtime, we'd be standing around a log with big sticks and we'd be going, dum, 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 dum. There's an Anti-Criminal Justice Act in England which is banning parties, raves, repetitive beats, more than 10 people in the field. And it's only made the underground stronger because you have to band together to fight the common thing. It was a case of that as well with punk.
You can see the hippie thing about it, you know what I mean? Punks were hippies with zips.
People began to kick hippies around, but quite frankly, I am a hippie. I want to be a hippie, you know? Punks and hippies are now fighting together here in England. It's the same thing they want. In fact, you can't tell them apart. And they're coming together in some new, strange style.
The first original Strummer campfire probably started at Glastonbury. He loved the kind of community aspect and the techno thing he suddenly got. You know, once it was there, once it was instilled in his brain, he instantly understood it and became a champion for it.
There's no better place to be on this whole island than right here, right now. I think this is some sort of gene memory. This is my theory. It's in our blood over here to have these kind of big meets. I bet you if we were standing here like maybe 2,000 years ago or whatever, you know, there'd be something like this going on.
But Joe was looking around the world for different inspiration.
This is Andres Landero, the king.
Cumbia music, African music.
Jason Mayle brought this lovely music to us. We are riding on it. We love it. We play it all the time.
Joe was marrying Luce, and I just felt really happy for him because he seemed very happy. It helped to ground him and to help focus him and give him a base to grow from and to start his new music and give him a bit more confidence in himself. And I think Joe really appreciated being Joe Strummer and not being the ex-Clash member.
Joe was a very spiritual person. He always had an interest in kind of American Indians, the Incas, Mexicans. But he did love the image and the symbolism attached to a campfire. It was very, very important to him. He saw it as a great opportunity to express himself, but in a really quiet way. I think Joe was fed up with shouting. And there's nothing better than people wandering through and sitting down, because a campfire itself is a very comforting thing. You sit there, you get warm, and you talk.
Last train to Nashville, yeah. You got on board. You packed up your medicine and you left without a word.
He would go off for hours on end and come back with people from all walks of life, none of whom we knew. He just enjoyed talking to people. He enjoyed listening. He used to learn so much.
You don't dance to techno anymore.
He's always thinking of other people all the time, like extra tents, extra sleeping bags for everyone.
It was an extension of the whole ethos of Glastonbury. For him, it was a form of alternative living with your friends.
In Rastafari, we say more fire, and it's not supposed to be a violent thing. It's about purging and cleansing and rebirth and rising phoenix-like out of the ashes. So maybe that's what he was tuned into.
He had a lot to teach about life in general and like the sort of the real world, not the perfect world.
Well, Joe's campfire was utopian. It was re-exploring the rules, re-exploring how you can make music. And it's like going back to the Druids. Yet the experience was pushing the envelope, trying to find something new.
Well, we hadn't seen each other for nearly 25 years, and Joe bumped into my daughter, and he gave her a note, and it just said, "Nothing's changed. We're all old hippies at heart. Come and have a campfire."
Campfires opened up the idea to Joe that he could form another band. It didn't have to be Clash-type music, that it could be an amalgamation of everything that he listened to. It gave him the confidence to think, hey, maybe I can find like-minded people to play with me.
Joe challenged you and he provoked you. In fact, the last time I saw Joe, I had an argument with him because he was trying to tell me not to stop smoking.
If you took cigarettes away from the 20th century, we wouldn't have any of the writers you go on about or anybody worships. This would not exist, and I want this acknowledged. In fact, I think non-smokers should be barred from buying any product that a smoker created.
We spent a long time trying to get Joe back on the road. We're talking about 2 years here. I mean, it started off, we were trying to get him to reform the Clash, but he was really adamant that he wouldn't, that he would not go back out on the road again.
If that was no toe tapper or no body shaker, boy, you need to see the Undertaker. That was Andres Landero, El Rey del Accordion. I had my daughter on my shoulders. I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "Ooh, Dad, there's a naked man dancing on the stage." So I said, "Let me see." So I threw her on the ground and stood on her recumbent body so I could see. And this is my first glimpse of Anthony Genn. And then I met him after that performance.
I was kind of drunkenly saying to him, "Come on, man, you're fucking Joe Strummer. Get up off your ass and make a fucking record. You know, we need you." I just didn't expect him to turn around and say, "Yeah, okay, I'll do it with you."
If you leave it too long, there's a sort of magic moment when it's too late to come back. And I think I just got in before the door closed.
Please welcome Joe Strummer and the Mescaleros.
On a techno D-Day,
road for a long, long time. He put a few pounds on. You could see he was knackered after 3 tunes because he hadn't paced himself. He was giving it all, you know what I mean? And he was just sweating, but nobody cared. It was Joe.
You got to fight for your crowd. Excuse me, girls. I'm trying to promote a rock and roll show tonight. Rock and roll. When you hustle, you got to have a hard shell. Like Captain Beefheart said, one cold vibe won't stop this here boogie. I'll leave you with the flyer in case you fancy going.
Okay.
It's the hippest place in town tonight. Ray! We're building.
When I got back on the road, my expectations were zero, zilch. Because I don't like to be disappointed, so I keep my expectations at a bare minimum.
It was constantly about reinvention.
Tonight there was a power cut, really a madness. Conversation died, most of us sort of bad. In the darkness an angel.
Yeah, he loved it. He loved it. He absolutely loved it. He loved the whole deal, just as a beginning chapter of a new period in his life.
Sorted out east and shore. Well, left to shout out, tell me a little more.
Songs don't tend to come to you, I think, if there's no outlet for them, because I couldn't get any records out. The songs would occasionally come, but I knew that as soon as we had a contract, the floodgates would open. I got reams of lyrics, carrier bags full of twisted napkins with insane things written on them. And you get a great idea for a lyric, just push people out of the way, throw yourself on the floor and write it down, because it only makes sense in the moment.
He would always just walk around the studio and he had an A4 sheet of paper and a pen, and he'd just write reams and reams of lyrics. And it went on for a few hours, and then about midnight or whatever, he went, okay, I've got a song. And he'd just written a song about his walk from Wilson to Cricklewood. And during that time, I was fiddling around with this little tune. I wasn't thinking for a second that Joe was going to go, yeah, that's good. I was just messing around. There was Joe Strummer and there was John Graham Mellor. He talks about his children in that song.
Go on, no skip, right? 1, 2, 3, action!
Maybe that night I wrote a song with John Mellor.
What about my baby's grown? What about going home? What about what's done is done? We're alive, that's the one. From Wilston to Cricklewood.
I feel like pinching myself sometimes. We actually got a record, you're traveling, you're going around, you're in countries, you're talking to people, you're playing shows. It's such a change from 10 years in the wilderness. Yeah, it feels great. I'm having Christmas every day.
Now here's Joe Strummer!
You know, when the Clash were on tour and we lost the beat, Chef would be like at the side of the stage going, don't forget, pump your loins, children. You know, that was like his motto or something.
Well, it's a rockin' world. Make no mistake about it. It's a shocking world. Could be what's so great about it. It's a rockin' world.
What the hell is this? Whenever we hung out, all of us brought sunglasses when Joe called saying, we're going out, you know, because you knew you'd be up at dawn somewhere with Joe.
You would get a message like, I'm coming into town, and you would take your vitamins and get your rest.
And if Joe could find a piano, he would play Junko Partner. Like it's, you know, 5 o'clock in the morning and we're all singing to Junko Partner in some ground floor apartment in the East Village.
Slowly but surely, my drug addiction became much more severe. He's seen that movie. He knows how that movie ends. So there's only one thing to do, and that's cut that guy loose.
I was staying in Portsmouth at the time. I hadn't seen Joe for a few years, and I saw him in the bar, and he kind of looks at me and goes, have you got an instrument with you?
So I just said to him, where's your violin? He said, in the car. I said, go and get it.
And then we did like virtually every gig after that.
Which part of life do we find the truth? Is it the beginning, the middle, or the end? Or is it all quasi-truth?
I approach everything in my life with a punk rock attitude. In fact, punk rock means exemplary manners to your fellow human being.
I have a record program on the World Service. I just play records for half an hour. When I asked how many people are listening to the slot, they flicked through a book. They said 40 million. I said, are you kidding me? And he said, no, 40 million. Just brings the idea of the globe sharply into focus. Maybe that opened my eyes to hearing things that aren't in the complete Western music groove. I've always kept that going, finding strange records and trying to learn from them. So it's not to keep it too narrow, because if you keep it very narrow, it's going to kill the life in the music. Summertime sun.
I saw Joe play it with the Mescaleros quite a bit. I remember it being just blissful. There wasn't anywhere else on the planet I could conceivably want to be.
Tokyo, typhoon coming in the city of sand. Oh.
I love you.
I think he knew he had something else to do, and he hadn't found it. And then with the Mescaleros, he found what he wanted to do again. I think it was as important to him as the Clash.
I don't have any message except don't forget you're alive, because sometimes when you walk around the city or when you yourself are in a bad mood, you can think, hey, wait a minute, we're alive. You know, we don't know what the next second will bring.
We all thought it might be we'd play at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or something, you know, we get back together. But it wasn't to be that, it was something more appropriate in a way.
The 2002 strike, we felt we deserved more money. And we didn't think we was being greedy, we was actually going for the average wage of that particular sector. We wasn't seeming to get our message across. Joe realised that there was more to our cause than what the papers and the government were saying. For Joe to come out and do such a gig for us was a great morale booster.
I didn't really intend to play. Joe and I had never discussed it beforehand, and we didn't pre-arrange anything. It was just I felt completely compelled. I said, hold me coat, I'm going out.
That was actually the first time that Mick and Joe had appeared on stage together since the breakup of the Clash. Which was kind of cool because they did it for the firemen and not for somebody paid them £2 million. And
that's the end of the first series of Joe Strummer's London Calling. And if you want a second series, please write in. In fact, I'm not even going to wait for you to write in. I'm going to kick off the second series right now. Let it roll with Nina Simone.
Certain kind of light it's never shone on me. I want my whole life to be.
He did this incredible Christmas card. They were a series of islands with campfires on them and people heading towards them, drawn by the campfires in little boats.
And it was his vision of heaven, I think, this place where people joined and were together.
It was all done very last minute, as always. I think I posted them on December the 21st. So a lot of people received them the day he died.
He was a genuinely happy man. There was no pressure, so there was just joy in what he was doing. He just went like that, on the sofa, reading The Observer, I think.
He died of a congenital heart defect, which we were all totally unaware that he had. It could have struck him down at any time.
None of those things can really last forever, and I think in a way, It's kind of greedy of people to expect it to last forever, because that's people like, that's their fire burning at extra strength for us, you know? And that's kind of a lot to ask of people, to burn like that.
Tens of thousands of emails that came in were saying, Joe, thank you. You changed the way that I thought and felt about life.
His mythology is cast in reinforced concrete. And it's probably helping to hold up the Trellick Tower right now.
You know, when you and I carried him into that chapel, you felt like you put a bit of weight on. I think that strat must have been in there. He doesn't. It's like Hemingway said about powers. There's never any end to it, and it's the same with Joe.
And so now I like to say, people can change anything they want to. And that means everything in the world. People are running about following their little tracks. I am one of them. But we've all got to stop just following our own little mouse trail. People can do anything. This is something that I'm beginning to learn. People are out there doing bad things to each other. It's because they're being dehumanized. It's time to take the humanity back into the center of the ring and follow that for a time. Greed, it ain't going anywhere. They should have that in a big billboard across Times Square. Without people, you're nothing. That's my spiel.
Once I got to the mountaintop, tell you what I could see. Prairie full of souls running from the priests of iniquity. Where the hell was Elijah? And what do you do? The prophecy came was through. We gotta take the walls of Jericho. Put your lips together and blow to the very
chuffing.